Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything from the Pistons to the NBA Draft and the Motor City Cruise.
And all right, so before we really get going, Blake, I want to give you a shout out here just because as I've been over gallivanting through Europe and away, you've been doing all the editing, all the background, all the setup, stuff that you and I usually split. So I just want to give you a big shout out, big thank you for the work you've done on keeping this podcast rolling so I can basically just show up and start recording.
Hey man, no worries at all. You deserve to enjoy your trip, and honestly, you do so much of the legwork when you are on American soil. So this is the least that I can do while you're overseas enjoying your trip. I know it's on the last leg. You're coming home tomorrow, and we're excited to have you back. But sounds like it's been a great time and much deserved vacation for you and the wife over there.
Yeah, it has been a good time, but the highlights have obviously been doing all the podcasts still. So because I've been lucky enough to not miss any of them. So it's the best.
Man, shout out to you. I mean, I went on vacation for a few weeks in December, and I was just like, hey, Wes, you're on your own. You got to figure things out. But no, seriously, it's probably like midnight where you are right now. I mean, just fill in the people where you are right now, because you were recording from somewhere different last week too.
Yeah, for sure. And YouTube users bringing up my audio, and I guys, I apologize if my audio is weird. I am on hotel Wi-Fi, and there's a big air conditioning unit kind of over here to my right. So I don't know if that's all that's doing it, but regardless, my wife and I, we took a 2-week trip, so we're in Vienna right now. A couple days ago, we were in Salzburg. Sorry, we were in Salzburg. We went to Milan. Last week, we were recording in London. We did a day trip out to Paris there. Yeah, come to Brazil. One day we had to do the Europe trip. This is basically our honeymoon because we got married during all the COVID stuff. So we've been having a great time, but it's a true gallivant. Like we didn't just go to one place. We've been bouncing everywhere.
Hey, that's the way to do it. When you're over there, you got to go see as much as you can see, because when you're over there, it's like cheaper to get around. Like you just got to get there, and then you can go and do whatever you want and see everything you want to see. So it sounds like an awesome trip.
Yeah, and the cheaper travel's been insane. Like we could just go to the airport, show up with just whatever's in our pockets, fly an hour. You're in a different country, and it's a super cheap flight. It's been pretty nuts, I have to say.
Yeah, it's totally different than traveling in the States and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just got to take advantage of it while you're over there. And then one day, I mean, I did that a bit back in the college days. I still need to get back over there because there were a ton of places I didn't see. Like I got to get to Vienna still. It sounds awesome from everything I've heard from you. So yeah, it's the way to do it. You got a big travel day ahead of you tomorrow, but we'll be happy to have you back in the States.
Well, all right, here you go, Blake. Here's a professional transition. Talking about Europe, people from the European continent. Let's talk about Piston legend Killian Hayes. A little bit of Pistons news came just actually earlier, I think today. I don't know, my days are all twisted up in my mind with this vacation, but signing looks like some kind of deal with the Brooklyn Nets. So it looks like our guy Killian Hayes is going to get another shot. Hopefully he can prove it. He can stick around. Good for him. He got another contract. So good for old friend Killian Hayes.
Yeah, and this broke like an hour before we started recording from Shams. And what was interesting about it is Shams said in his tweet that Killian agreed to a 1-year deal with the Nets. Hayes will have a chance to compete for a roster spot with the team. So like, I don't know if that means it's an Exhibit 10 deal and he has to go and compete for a roster spot in training camp, or if it's a non-guaranteed deal, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, it was, once he got waived from the Pistons, you couldn't help but wonder, like, what does his NBA future look like? And it's been up in the air until now. I mean, I'm happy he at least gets one more shot and we can see where things go from here. I mean, we know the Nets aren't anywhere close to competing, so I think it's a good situation for him to go to and try to make the team. If he makes the team, find a role, get some playing time, and see what happens. But overall, happy for him. Wish him nothing but the best, and hopefully we get to see him go up against the Pistons a few times next year.
Yeah, and I mean, probably for some preseason games, if they end up on that schedule. I don't know if that's been released yet. If it has, I can't remember. But regardless, just like on the Hewitt side, I was feeling real bad for our guy Killian Hayes there because he got cut from the French team right before the Olympics. He was cut from the Pistons, just waived outright. Like it's a bad string of luck for a real young guy. So getting another contract, I'm happy for the guy. Hopefully, like you said, it works out well and he can stick around for a little bit. And guys, if you're watching live here, make sure to get your questions into our YouTube chat room here. It's we're kind of into the doldrums, dog days of the summer. So whatever you got on your mind, go ahead and throw it in the chat. We'll hopefully get to as many as we can. But we did get a lot of questions, so why don't we just jump into those? Let's start here from our guy Gil Medina. Says, why do you think Simone Fontecchio took the salary he did? Did he not get feelers from other teams, or did the age limit his options? So Blake, this just looks like, Fontecchio was kind of on a sweet deal here. It looks like a big discount. Why do you think he took that money?
Yeah, this is something I've been wondering about a little bit too. I think it can be a multitude of factors. Like, yes, he is a little bit older. He's only had 2 seasons in the NBA. He came from overseas, takes a shorter term deal on a small amount of money. Like, I think a part of it could be maybe he wants to go overseas after this contract is done, play a few seasons in the NBA, and make some money, and then go back home after a few years. And also maybe he wants to take a shorter term deal so he can be a free agent in just a couple seasons and make some more money on the market. I think he'll be like 31, 32 by the time his contract with the Pistons is up. And also, since the Pistons acquired him at the trade deadline, he was a restricted free agent. I think and the Pistons did extend that qualifying offer. I think he would have needed to get an offer sheet from another team to take him like away from the Pistons. And I mean, we don't know if there was anything like that. We know he wasn't given an offer sheet, but we don't know what the interest was behind the scenes. So maybe he wants to stay here. It's a good situation for him where he knows he can have a role. But in terms of like why he took the money, I honestly just think it could be a mix of things. Like maybe he wants to go back overseas in a couple years, or maybe he just wants to keep flexibility open for himself to be able to be an unrestricted free agent in just a couple seasons.
Well, yeah, and the other factor is probably the new CBA, right? I mean, it looks like the market kind of dried up pretty quickly for a lot of these guys. I mean, even, you look at Malik Beasley taking the contract that he did, he probably could have in another year gotten more money than that. But with the heavier cap penalties and teams still kind of feeling out what you can and can't really effectively do with all the aprons and all the penalties that come along with that, I think it seems to have just led to teams being a little more frugal with their mid-level rotation players and below. So the stars are still getting the big bucks, but everyone else is getting kind of squeezed in free agency. So, I think that probably played some factor of it as well. How about you?
Yeah, that's a totally good point. We've seen as free agency has died down a bit, there isn't a ton of action, as there is still some decent names on the market that at this point are trying to find a veteran deal somewhere. So I think Fontecchio like I was surprised at the number that he signed for. I thought it would be a little bit more. I don't know how much more. But yeah, definitely when you're under team control for a team that has the cap space that the Pistons do. They could have went above the cap to re-sign him as their own free agent. I think it makes sense, and I do just think there might be something behind the scenes, just maybe personally for Fontecchio, where he had his own reasons where he wanted to take a lower term deal in terms of years, and he was willing to like give up some money to do that. Like maybe the Pistons didn't want to commit to him for much longer. I mean, even the other contracts, like they went out and acquired players either on expiring deals after next season, or like the Tobias Harris signing was a 2-year deal as well. Yes, he's older, but it seems like maybe that's what the team wanted to do, and Fontecchio was okay with that for whatever his personal reasons were.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier too that he did very much seem to signal that he wanted to stay in Detroit. He talked especially positively about playing next to Cade Cunningham. Seemed like he was all in on the Detroit Pistons. So yeah, I mean, like you said, it seems like it's a mix of things, right? But it's an interesting mix to say the least, without being able to get into the guy's head. Here's a question from a YouTube user. Curious to know if you'll have an answer to this one. Do the Tigers trade Skubal? And this is going to show how much I watch baseball, but that's the pitcher, right? That's the good pitcher that they have?
Yes. And I do not know that much about baseball, so I'm not going to act like I do, but I have friends that are a lot more into it than I am, and everything that I've seen, it seems like you shouldn't trade him unless you're getting like I think the words I've seen are like a historic package. Like I know the Orioles were in the mix and they have like a ton of top level prospects, which I don't know if they'd be willing to give those up for him. But I don't know. I'm kind of thinking you have this pitcher who's in the Cy Young mix. Like, why give him up now? I know this team does need hitting, but I don't know if you give up like one of the best pitchers in baseball to do that. But I don't know. That's about the extent of it that I know. I'm interested to see whether he'll get dealt. I think I'm hoping that he doesn't, but we'll see.
So it sounds like, from an outsider perspective here, that this is not a Bojan Bogdanovic situation from not this most recent season, but the year before, when there's the whole argument of whether it's worth keeping him for another couple of years or moving on. So Skubal is better than Bojan, correct?
Yes. Yeah. This reminds me exactly of like, have you seen on Twitter when like a story happens, whether it's for another sport or something that happens in the world, and someone like replies to it and is like, explain in NBA terms.
Right.
Like I feel this is the conversation we're having right now. But yeah, Skubal, I just looked it up. He's 27. I think he's still under contract for like team control for however many years. Like it seems to me like it's a guy that you don't give up with unless you're just robbing the other team who you're sending him to.
All right, really quickly before we get back to basketball, we'll wrap up the Tigers section here. Something that's always confused me. So you seem to watch a decent amount of baseball, right? Just like recreationally? Yeah?
Dude, I do not, since Comcast and Bally Sports have gotten in their whole like like spat. Like I don't even have Bally Sports anymore, which I need to figure out in time for Piston season. I'm gonna probably get their app, but I have not watched the Tigers since that happened. I've went to a couple games, so those are the only times I've watched. But
you missed a big comeback.
Oh my gosh, yeah. For no one who saw that on Twitter, I was at the game where the Tigers played the Dodgers, and I had these like awesome seats, and it was the bottom of the 8th. It was really hot out. The Tigers were down 5. We saw Shohei Ohtani like play. We saw him hit a home run. We were like, yeah, we've seen everything we want to see here. Let's get out of this heat. And then the Tigers come back and win it in extra innings, and the game is getting noted as like one of the best games at Comerica Park ever, and I just left early.
Like that's the Cardinals fan number one of being you never
I
leave early.
know.
Come on.
I know. I was so mad, but me and my friends that went together, we got to the point where like we kind of just had to laugh at it. Like the
Yeah.
story almost turned out better. The fact that we left like right before this comeback happened.
No, it's happened to me too. Where the worst is if you're still listening to the game on the radio as you're driving home, and all of a sudden it gets real exciting, and you're going,
Oh my god.
"Oh, they won't let me back in, will they?"
Yeah, we didn't know if we like wanted them to like win or lose as the game was
Right.
happening, but then it turned out to a great story. And hey, we went because we wanted to see Otani, which we did, and that was cool.
All right. So here was the question I was going to ask before we got sidetracked: Is 27 old or young for baseball? I mean, that's like right in the prime for basketball. So what is that for baseball?
Oh man, I don't even know.
Okay.
It sounds young to me, but because like some of the prospects they spend time in the minors, like they might not even
Oh, for so long. Yeah.
reach. Yeah, they might not even get to the big leagues until they're like 25. So okay, YouTube user says 27 is your prime, so I'm gonna go with that.
Okay.
It sounds just about that to me.
YouTube user says he was just poking fun about how in the dog days we are. And you know what? We
Hey,
agree, and that's why
Killian
we
Hayes signed
answered
a deal
it.
today. Like stuff
Big
is
news.
happening.
Big news. But speaking of young or right in your prime players, and not a perfect transition, but this is from a guy, Rames, in the DVB comments says, how can Cade and the young crew take last year and grow together from it? What do you think?
One of the things that Cade said at multiple points through the last year, the last season, the losing streak, all the L's that piled up is it made him realize, and I mean probably through his whole career at this point, not just last year, it made him realize how hard it is to win, especially at this level. I mean, Cade was on like one of the best high school teams of all time. I'm pretty sure all his AAU teams were dominant. College, I mean, he wasn't on a great team, but he wasn't on a bad team. Like he went to an NCAA tournament. So I think if there's anything that they can take, I guess mentally, like there should be a ton of stuff like that they're working on in the gym and they can take developmentally with their games. But I think just having that attitude of understanding like how difficult it is to win in the NBA, which sounds easy, but there might be a sense of when you don't really know until you're in it. And especially when you're losing at the rate that they lost, like they should know what they need to do at least to pull out a few wins. They were, even though they lost all those games in a row, only won 14 games in the season, they were in a decent amount of games where it they could have won in the fourth quarter. So those reps are important to remember going forward. And overall, like hopefully that helps them when they're in similar situations next year. Um, so yeah, I think the one thing, like the biggest thing that stands out to me is just like taking that aspect and understanding what you need to do to win 10 more games, 12 more games, whatever it ends up being this season. Hopefully there's a little bit more under your belt of yes, we've went through this losing and that's not okay and this is what we need to do to get past that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think this is one of those, few things in the NBA that most people who have played competitive sports at, like not a super high level can still really personally relate to it. Because even if you just think of like, okay, if you played travel basketball and you get to middle school and you're trying out for the middle school team, and you get kicked around a little bit right away, right? It doesn't go your way. You got two responses to that. It's either, well, this isn't for me, I can't do it, or I just need to work that much harder so that I can compete with these guys. And it's kind of the same thing here, right? Like you lost 28 straight games. You won a franchise record low number of games for the season. You could either go, well, like we're just not the guys, or you can kind of say, hey, this just goes to show how much harder I have to work, how much more I have to do. This is what's up. He says, "What's up, my guys? What's up to you as well? Thanks for joining, man. Appreciate it." Um, and Pistons talk bringing up my mic again. I apologize, guys. I'm on hotel Wi-Fi, so I'm not sure what I can do. I'll try when you're talking to mess with it a little bit, but regardless, I, you could just kind of relate to them being in that really difficult situation, and the only way out of it is either take yourself out or work harder to get yourself out of it, because no one's really coming to save you. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You've learned how much more you have to do, how much harder you have to go to just get 10 more wins. Like 10 isn't a lot, but just get 10 and keep trying to build from there. I think you're spot on.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is obviously this team is nowhere near like fighting for a playoff spot or like a play-in that they were last season. So if they do take that and it results in winning 5 to 10 more games, whatever it looks like, and then all of a sudden they find themselves in the hunt for the 10 seed, just trying to like build upon that to get you to that next step in fighting for a play-in game, and eventually just like building on that to get in the playoffs, winning a playoff series. Unfortunately, none of these guys have had that playoff experience, which I mean, you bring in guys like Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley who can help out with that. But I think overall, even though the situations are different, hopefully they can understand like you can't really give up much, if anything, in this league to take steps. I mean, I'm sure they understand that. Like they don't want to be losing anything close to the rate they did, and hopefully it results in taking a minor step and then another minor step after that. And yeah, like L Blouses brought up how Ashton, the trainer, mentioned that Cade and the other guys are growing together. Like, yeah, all the young guys, the young core, except for the draft picks from this year, went through it together. So I think they've been through it together, and hopefully they can build upon it together. We don't know how many of them are going to be around for the long haul, but I think it's definitely something in the immediate future. It seems like all the young guys from last year are going to be back. Like, hopefully it's something that they can take together and build upon.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's another one of those unusually pretty dang relatable things, right? Because it's just adversity for a group. It can either bring you as a unit closer together, or it can kind of push you and tear you apart. And it's very much an active decision as to who's involved with that group, as to which way that thing goes. So yeah, I hope Bastion is right, and that these guys are really coming together, pulling together, and it just made them closer and tighter as a unit. The chemistry will be better. It's all possible. So hopefully that's the way it goes. This is an interesting one from Big Cheese here in the live comments. It says, the Knicks just hired away Mark Bryant, and he was touted as being, quote, one of the best big man coaches in the NBA. So he says, where do these monikers and reputations come from for these assistant coaches that, truthfully, we don't know much about them? So I think it's a good question. What do you think?
Yeah, that is a good question. And I mean, Mark Bryant, even like Fred Vinson, like knew he was a highly touted shooting coach, but you only know that because you hear it on the internet and through other people. I mean, I think just these assistant coaches, they all have some sort of niche. I mean, maybe not the top assistant who's focused on the collective as a whole, but a lot of them, if they're not assigned to a position group, like they normally are assigned to different players who they work out with, like through practices, pre-games, and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, Mark Bryant, maybe he can definitely focus on guys like Jalen Duren and Stu, and now Paul Reed. I mean, honestly, I did not hear that he was like one of the best big man coaches until he was brought to Detroit. So you have to think he's gonna be focusing on that, and we'll see what happens. Like if he helps Jalen Duren take a step defensively, if he helps Stu like focus on somehow trying to like protect the rim better, even though he's never going to be that like vertical, like lengthy big man. I think bringing in guys who have had success around the league, like focusing elsewhere on like specific position groups that we know have that this team has lacked. I mean, hopefully it works, and then if it doesn't, then maybe you're just like it's a personnel thing.
Yeah, I wonder. Oh, that's the wrong one to tap. Sorry about that. I wonder how much of the reputation is, I guess, kind of a communicative knowledge buildup type of thing, where internally a guy like Mark Bryant is just known around the NBA as being someone that has worked with big men. The big men that he's worked with, like him, review him positively, what have you. And then just over time, he gets very good and has a very deep understanding of how to communicate what a big man needs to do to big men who don't quite know that yet. And then now, because we've talked about this before with Fred Vincent, it's not like any of these guys are really reinventing the wheel with the specialties that they have as coaches. So there has to be something somewhere in the efficiency or the way that they get the information across that really seems to resonate with guys. And that is a skill, like anything else. So I wonder if that's really the reputation. It starts off as something that's just internal to the league, and then over time, media starts to pick up on it just because, Mark Bryan is always hired as a big man coach. Fred Vincent is always hired as a shooting coach, and it just kind of grows.
Yeah, and I mean, I mentioned it on the show a few times, but I took like a NBA draft course recently with our guy KCP for three from DBB, and one of the things we got to do is there were different like NBA personnel who we could pick their brain, like video coordinators, scouts, some assistant coaches, and like I that experience really hit home for me that everyone, for the most part, I mean, different situations are different, but you have a clear focus area. I mean, yeah, obviously the head man is much higher level, and then probably his right hand man the same as well. But the rest of your coaching staff is going to have players who they're responsible for working them out, everything like that. So I mean, I think that the Pistons were really intentional with these hires and bringing guys in who can hopefully make the best out of their young core that they have. And in addition to the coaching staff, some players who can help both in the locker room and on the floor and helping fill some of the holes that we all know the team has.
You gotta love when there's a little bit of division of labor overlap with our NBA conversations. Just makes me smile a little bit. But this is a good question here from the second hoop. It says, who is the most likely to improve on a skill they need to improve this year? And here are your options. So Jaden Ivey, better handle and decision making, so being more of a primary guy. Jalen Duren, improving on defense, or Asar Thompson having a better all-around jump shot. Which do you think of those is the most likely to actually happen this year?
I'm gonna pick one that I think you're not gonna pick, and I'll walk through my
Don't do
reasoning.
it,
So
Blake.
I'm
No.
I'm gonna do it, and just okay. I'm using these three as like just my only like going off of these specific like players and parameters. I'll say Jalen Duren getting better at defense, and here's why. I am not convinced that Asar's shot is going to take that much of a leap. I think it will take some sort of leap, but I don't think it'll probably get anything close to league average. Hopefully it does in the future. I just don't see it turning around to that next year. For Ivy, I can see him tightening up his handle, becoming a better decision maker, finishing at the rim, all that. I'm just not sure he's going to have as much on ball looks and reps to do that. So I'm gonna take Jalen Duren improving at defense here. It's not like last year was an outlier in terms of Jalen Duren's defense. There were like some things his rookie season and then going back to his college days at Memphis. But after what we talked about last week and Jalen Duren, when he spoke with Vinny Goodwill, just saying he knew he didn't bring it defensively last year, and he knows he has to do that. I think we're going to see more effort at the very least on that end. And we know how good an athlete he is. I mean, instinctually, you don't really know what's going to improve there. But I can see him getting back. And I don't think he has to be a great defender to round out his game. Like, we know what he does well. He's a great rebounder, both offensively and defensively, a great pick and roll threat, lob threat, run to the rim center. So I think if he can just get a little bit better on defense, like not asking him to change it around night and day, I think that could stick out the most. And I think I don't even know if I think it's likely, but I feel like it's fairly reasonable to ask and expect him to do that because of he knows he has to get better. You, like we just talked about, you brought in a big man coach who you know is going to focus on that. You hired a head coach who's defensive minded. So I think he almost has to get a little bit better, or that just tells you a lot, and you wonder if you're going to look somewhere else for your starting center and what his future is going to look like moving forward in Detroit.
Well, here's the one little feather in your cap for that answer is that he was so bad that getting to average would be a large leap if that can be pulled off. So, like in terms of who has the maybe the most runway to make a big leap and have it still be somewhat reasonable, it is probably Jalen Duren. I think the easiest, though, like the lowest hanging fruit here to me is probably Jaden Ivey as a lead playmaker. One, I do think he's going to get those reps. With the way the roster's set up right now, it kind of looks like you're going to end up staggering Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham a little bit through the most of the season, as long as, assumedly it goes well. So I do think he's going to get those opportunities. But with the spacing that they added, it really, I'll just say this, opening up lanes for a guy as athletic as Jaden Ivey and as willing of a passer as Jaden Ivey, like having those passing lanes be more wide open, those driving lanes being more wide open, just simplifies his reads to a point where I'm not as worried about him making the wrong choice of a field of very difficult passes, which was a big problem last year for almost every single guard. Like, I think that the spacing, and we talked about it, the spacing really, really fed in to the turnover issue, and the turnover issue kind of fed into the spacing. So it was kind of like a self-feeding fire there for a little while. But when you space out the floor, it gets easier for your guards. And Jaden Ivey, while he's not a guy that's going to make really advanced reads, if he's driving to the rim, the floor is spaced, and he sees help coming down the baseline, then that is an easy kick out. And I have full confidence that he can make that because he's made that for the past 3 years that I think all of us have watched him at Purdue and then with the Pistons. So Ivy, I think the handle decision making is probably the lowest hanging fruit. But in terms of the highest change, the biggest delta, I do think you're probably right. The most likely one could be Duren there.
And with Ivy, we heard JB Bickerstaff say he wants to get Ivy the ball on the move. So I think you're going to see more intentionality of putting Jaden Ivey in situations that where he can be more successful. I mean, it was no secret to anyone who watched any Pistons game that he was a bit disregarded by the coaching staff, both in terms of like playing time and as well on like the schemes that you were running for him. So I think, I mean, with this new coaching staff, like maybe one of the biggest beneficiaries of it, talking just from like coaching style, is probably Jaden Ivey. I mean, yes, the roster moves and everything definitely support Cade. Like Cade's in a much better spot, but I think Ivy is hopefully how he's used is going to be totally rethought. And then from there, just what he can improve on being in those better situations is probably more likely.
Yeah, and it's, obviously Ivy and Cade are very different players, but, you said that the roster is being shifted to help Cade Cunningham. I think almost all of those things also help Jaden Ivey too. Yeah, they go about it in very different ways, and Jaden's a guy that, wants to finish at the rim more often than Cade does, wants to get himself to the line, a little bit more score first. All that's true, but just on the principle, like you help Cade Cunningham by putting more shooters on the floor. You help Cade Cunningham by having ideally better defenders on the floor to take pressure off him on that end. All of those things also help Jaden Ivey, who just goes about it a different way. So, I hope of these three things, I would say that the first two are probably more likely than the last one. Like Duren being marginally better as a defender versus Asar just overall having a vastly improved jump shot. But let's stick with Jaden Ivey for a second because we got like three-ish Jaden Ivey questions here. This one is from Mr. Jones. It says Andrew Nemhart just got $20 million a year on a contract. What do you think Jaden Ivey will get next year if he improves slightly? YouTube user wants to know how much money Ivey and Duren may demand in an extension. And Pistons Talk wants to know if we had to extend Ivey or Duren next, who would we choose? So why don't we just we're going to do all of this, but what do you think Ivey and Duren, what those extensions might look like? And then if you had to pick one to do next, which one would it be?
This is a really tough one. And I think just like what we talked about with the CBA goes into this a bit. And what we're seeing in Houston this offseason with Sengun and Jalen Green, both up for extensions. Neither of them have got them. And looking like they're going to wait until next year. I mean, maybe something will happen this offseason. The Pistons are in a bit of a similar boat with that. I mean, not exactly the same because you already extended Cade Cunningham, but in terms of an Ivy and or Duren extension, I think unless either of them make a crazy leap to the point where you think, okay, I know for sure this can be my number 2 or 3 guy with alongside Cade Cunningham. I don't think you can give them anything close to a max extension. I don't think they'd probably get that just in general. I'd look back to the Isaiah Stewart extension, which was like 3 years, $54 million. I'm probably off on those numbers. And I think what Ivy or Duren would get would be a little bit more than that, just with the cap going up and everything like that. So I think it'd be somewhere around that 20 million range. But I think to even extend either of them, you have to be like, they have to prove to you that they are part of this team moving forward. Like you can see the vision with them as part of this core. Can Jaden Ivey thrive next to Cade Cunningham, or is he just not the type of player that you want to commit that much time and money to? Because of that, I think I would lean towards Duren as more likely to get an extension. But that said, he needs to show you, like, come out, improve defensively, so you can say, okay, I know what this is. Like, this guy can be my starting center next to Cade. But with that, like, I still think you're probably somewhere in the 15 to 20 million per year range. And maybe like because of all of those things as a whole, we see something similar to what's going on in Houston, and neither of them get an extension because the year after that, Asar Thompson's up for an extension, and then Ron Holland shortly after that. Like you have all these young guys that you need to know how are they a part of this team moving forward, and I don't think we know that with either of these players yet. And next season is going to tell us a lot with both of them.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we know that yet, and it's kind of the difficult conversation surrounding these two. Like you said, I think there is a world where they do not, either of them, neither gets an extension next offseason. I mean, they both are still, they both still have a lot to prove, just like you talked about. So in terms of like, if that extension were to be offered, my guess, I would probably lean towards Ivy over Duran only slightly. I think both are similarly unproven at this point. Jaden Ivey is just a little bit more unique, being a big athletic guard who's got some, like 3-level scoring potential. Whereas Duran, you're still kind of looking at him as an offense only lob threat from the center position, which you can find 70 to 90% replacements of for fairly cheap. So just that uniqueness makes me lean a little bit towards Ivy, but like you said, like both of those deals somewhere in the 15 to 25 range. It's not going to break the bank as things stand now, as long as neither takes a massive leap. If Ivy becomes next season a guy that scores 22 points per game, okay, yeah, he's probably going to get an extension. It's probably going to be still short of that full rookie max, but much closer to it than it would have otherwise been. If Jalen Duren really makes an improvement as a shot blocker and steals guy, then yeah, maybe he's going to get a big one as well. Again, not the max, but closer to it. As it stands now, probably neither is the most likely option. Do you think that that's crazy at this point?
I think so, especially because you have like in the chat, Mimsy mentions that he feels Asar is the more likely one to stay long term over
sure.
Ivy and Duran. I agree with that right now, and I won't get too much into it because honestly, I don't know the details, but I know that there are some salary cap things that went into why like Houston wasn't extending Sengun and Jalen Green. So like the Pistons are going to be in a similar situation. I think unless either of them are willing to accept a similar deal to what Isaiah Stewart did, I feel like it's not likely that either of them will get an extension, but maybe they're okay with that. Maybe they're not, and like maybe Jaden Ivey thinks he's better off in a different situation or something like that. Like the fact that neither of them are gonna get anything close to the rookie max, it puts them into a situation where it's a decision both for the team and both for them, and maybe the decision is I'm gonna prove myself here and hit the open market once I'm able to, and find a deal elsewhere in a situation that's better for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Really quickly before we jump on to the next one, want to give a shout out to Art Vandalay 81 from the DBB comments, because he asked a very similar question to one that we answered earlier about which guys are most likely to improve this season and take that leap. But I didn't shout out his name for that one. So appreciate you. Thank you for the question. Now let's get to this one from Big Cheese. It's directed at me, but you're going to answer it first because you agree with me, or at least the last time we spoke you did. So why do you wave off the idea of Ron Holland playing for the Grand Rapids Drive? Because, well, naturally they're now the Gold and they're associated with the Nuggets. But he's talking about the Crews. So why do you wave off the idea of Ron Holland playing for the Crews in the G League? The Ignite roster last year was a big mess. Yes, it really was. and he needs to get reps on a team, hopefully better constructed for his skill set and development. So, what do you think? What are the reasons for Ron Holland probably not going to see too many G League minutes?
I think he spent, like, we saw him play in the G League, yes, under a roster construction that was a mess, but he averaged like 20 points a game. We know what he is at that competition level. I think the only way he spends time with the crews is if he really is just out of the rotation and there's no minutes for him, or just minor amount of minutes. I could see the Pistons, like, the day before or the day of they have a game, sending him to the cruise. He goes, he plays a half, and then he's in street clothes the second half and rejoins the Pistons. I think it's really only makes sense if he does need those game reps and he's not getting them with the Pistons. I think we know he's not like an extremely polished defender, but we know he's going to compete defensively. He needs to tighten his handle. He needs to limit his turnovers. He's not going to have nearly the amount of on ball reps with the Pistons as he did with the Crews. So that, with the Ignite. So that automatically puts him in a better situation. So I think you need to see what he is at the NBA level. But I mean, I'm putting these rotations together to see what it is. Like, hopefully we have somewhere between a 9 to 10 man rotation. And if we're only going like 9, I mean, Holland's at the very best, like, on the end of that. And I'm not sure if he's in it. Like, I think the Pistons have to go 10 man to say Ron Holland is for sure in the rotation. So if he really is at the end of that and just not getting many minutes, why not send him down to the Cruise for the sole reason of getting some game reps?
Yeah. So here's my thing, and here's why I still say even if he's not getting too many minutes with the Pistons, that I still wouldn't expect him to play much with the Crews. And if I'm wrong about this, and we're in January and he's played a bunch of minutes with the Crews, then I'll raise my hand and say I was wrong. But you look at what Ron Holland needs to improve. Okay, he needs to improve his ball handling, tighten up his decision making. Well, it's not like the G League is really known for the exceptional perimeter defense that they play. All right, so there's not much pressure there for him to become better at those things. He's not going to be pushed. He's already more or less excelled to being the top, being a number 5 overall pick level of excel at that level. In that, you want him to become, maybe a better finisher around the rim. But if you can block shots as a big man and rebound, you're in the NBA. That's just how it goes. Those guys are rare, and the NBA needs them. So they don't exist in the G League. He's not really going to get pressured there. And if you want him to improve his shot, then, I mean, you can still get him live reps in practice where he's going against NBA players on the Pistons. And, game reps are game reps. If practice is like a game, which it is, at least it has been in my basketball experience, then that's just fine. It's the same stuff. So there's a lot of value, I think, in keeping him with the main club. And then on top of that, there's that little narrative thing, which makes it very awkward, and I think it's worth at least bringing up. And imagine Ron Holland was a college player, and he was a good enough college player to take him number 5, right? So Ron Holland, sorry everyone for the Wi-Fi issues on my mic. I am breaking up. I've been trying to fix it. There's not much I can do about it. So apologies there. But all right. So
we're getting through it.
We're getting through it. Imagine that instead of Ron Holland, it's Reed Shepherd, and you're looking at Reed Shepherd and go, man, there's just no room in this rotation for him. So we're going to send you back to Kentucky for a couple of months, and we're going to let you play there. It's not quite the same, but it's still really awkward narratively, and I just think we got to bring that up.
I find myself convincing myself of different things. Like, I think I think as a whole over the past few seasons, you've seen teams leverage their G League affiliate for higher draft picks just to get them touches. Uh, just in the last draft, Amen Thompson spent some time in the G League. That was only after he was coming off of injuries to get some reps there. I mean, Asar Thompson, the fifth pick, did not spend any time in the G League, as he shouldn't. And then you had the sixth pick, Jarris Walker, who was sent down to the G League, not a ton, but a decent amount, just because he didn't fit into the Pacers rotation. And it wasn't just him, it was Ben Shepherd too, who was contributing some big playoff minutes for them. But with Walker, it was really just to get reps. Like, I remember watching some of their games against the Crews, and those two played the first half. It was like a game that started at 11 a.m. They sat out the second, and they were back with the Pacers because the Pacers had a game the same night. So that's the only reason I can see a way where Ron is sent to the G League for a few games there, here and there. I don't think he'll be spending anything close to more time with the Crews than he is the Pistons. And I mean, you have the team, like the teams practice in the same facility. They play a couple miles from each other. So if you are in a situation where you feel like you need to leverage it, you definitely can. It's been brought up in the chat. Like, hopefully this front office and this coaching staff leverages the Crews a little bit more than previous regimes have had. I think it makes sense because you have the franchise right next to you. But when you have your fifth pick and you know you're not going to be competing this season, I think you want to try to get him as many NBA minutes as you can. But that said, like with this rotation, it's an unknown where he fits in. And then once he's on the floor, if the turnovers are an issue, the shot is an issue, maybe those minutes go down too.
Yeah, look, for me, it's not necessarily a Pistons rotation problem so much as it is a problem of the G League is good developmentally for very specific things and not as much for others. So, for example, like if we can all rewind our brain back to Sekou Doumbouya and how he dominates the G League because he's tall, long, and a great athlete and has a decent level of skill, even though he needed to, at the time, refine quite a bit of his game. You know, you look at Saban Lee, who was a really small guard who could win in the G League because he's an incredible athlete and would not win in the NBA because he's not an incredible NBA athlete. He's just a very, very good one. Like, the G League is not AAA baseball. I don't mean to, just crap on the G League, and our guy Keith Black Trudeau was mentioning this on Twitter today as well that I saw. But the G League, it's not the second best league of basketball in the world. That's probably somewhere over in Europe or maybe Australia. It's not even the third, because I think you can make a pretty strong argument that the highest level of college basketball is much more cohesive basketball than what the G League is. What the G League is a fantastic group of talent, guys that are incredible basketball players and are right on the cusp of making the NBA. And because they're all vying for call-ups, essentially, 10-day contracts and two-way deals and things like that, the actual quality of the basketball is not awesome. It's not the most, it's not the best to watch, yes, but more importantly, it's not a direct one-to-one to the NBA. You don't have a lot of defense, both on the perimeter and at the rim. There's a lot of offense, a lot of ISO style offense, and guys just looking to get their own so they can show out. Like, it's not a fantastic environment for guys like Ron Holland, who would excel in that sort of situation no matter what, and already did. Where it might be a good situation is for someone that maybe isn't as athletically gifted, but you want them to really work on building out a skill set to beat those guys in the G League and then take that back up to the NBA. So, I just think it's a question of what you want to get out of it. And I don't really see what Ron Holland might be able to get out of the G League at this point developmentally outside of a, you know, hey, he's in a rut, he needs a confidence boost, send him down there, let him be the dude, let him have some fun, and just kind of forget about this, and then come back up.
Yeah. All that said, the G League's awesome. I'm
Yeah,
biased for sure, but
I'm not trying to crap on the G League. I hope it didn't come across that
no, I
way.
know. No. I just have to say that because I'm very biased after spending time around the cruise. But for like some of the players that we've mentioned as high draft picks that have spent time in the G League, it's mainly just getting a heavy volume of minutes for game reps when they need because they're not getting it with their NBA team or they're coming back from injury. I mean, I think it would be a great thing to leverage for Ron if he's ever in those scenarios. But yeah, overall, like he should be working on his game with the main group and hopefully finding some minutes so he can get those game reps at the next level because he needs to take that step. It's a very different game. Like, yes, he spent some time playing with the NBA 3-point line, playing against guys who were in and out of the league and everything like that. But we know he's the athlete he is, the prospect he is for a reason. So you need to give him as much opportunity as possible to show that at the next level.
Yeah, and just really quickly, Big Cheese in the comments says it's not necessarily about competitiveness; it's about cultivating a skill set for him. And I completely agree with that, which is why I don't really see much value in sending him down to the G League unless it's a confidence booster sort of thing. And just so I can make that perfectly clear, like Ron Holland in the G League can win with his athleticism. He can't purely win with his athleticism at the NBA level. So unless you want to send him down to the Cruise and tie his right hand behind his back and say, go play with only your left, then like, no, he's not really going to cultivate any skill set because you're not putting him in a position where he has to rely on his skill set. And that's the issue. You want to put him in spaces where he's forced to problem solve, and the solution can't just be, pressing the right trigger to go faster, basically. Let's go to this one quickly and then get into some rotation conversations before we head out. We were talking about the extension stuff earlier for Ivy and Duran. So Big Cheese asked this one. Just thought it was interesting, so I want to get your thoughts. So if Jaden Ivey becomes a 22 point per game scorer, like I mentioned, maybe it was possible, I don't know, but let's say that he does. But he's still one of the worst defenders on the team. Should he and would he still get an extension? What do you think?
For me, it kind of depends on what Ron Holland turns into. Like at the same time, if Ivy makes that leap, like what does Ron Holland look like? Because if he comes out and I mean, we just talked about we're not sure how he fits in the rotation, but if he shows some flashes and potential to where he could be a number 2 next to Cade that you're looking for, like I feel like there's always, as long as Jaden Ivey is on the Pistons, there's always going to be the conversation of do him and Cade truly fit together? And you know that JB Bickerstaff is going to focus on defense. So what does that look like for Ivy in the future? Like if Ron is your long-term starter at the 2 spot and then you have shooter A, B, and your big man from there, and hopefully Ron's shot improves as well. Like, does Ivy fit in there? I think he should probably get extended, but still in this case, to me, it's that like deal that we were talking about, that like 15 to 25 range. And I think you just need to have a conversation with yourself internally. Like this player, we know he's one of the quickest twitch guards in the league. We know what he does well, but we know we're always going to have to make up for it on defense. Are you comfortable with having Cade take on the best backcourt player on the opposition, or do you want someone like Ron Holland next to him who can do that, play perimeter defense, and also hopefully give you some offense and development there? This one's a really iffy one for me because like, I don't know. I almost feel like if Jaden Ivey blows up and is scoring like 20 to 25 points a game, I feel like the fit conversation would still be there. And not saying you give up on him, but maybe you would entertain more like should we trade him and recoup something that this roster is lacking and get a long-term piece?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing with this extension conversation is that it's not the same as a this person is the long term solution conversation. So, yeah, if Jaden Ivey's averaging 22 points per game, he's going to be doing it fairly efficiently because he's a fairly efficient scorer and has been through his first 2 years. So, assuming that that sticks, even if he's a really bad defender, you still hand him a contract extension and you figure out what to do later. Be that move him to the bench and make him more of a six man super scorer type guy, or move on and trade him for another team that's excited about getting a 23, 24-year old who can score 20 plus points per game on a fairly decent deal. Giving him an extension doesn't mean he's definitely a solution. And then just quickly to the Ron Holland thing with it, I do see Holland as a wing, whereas I would say Ivey's a guard. So there could be overlap. There doesn't have to be overlap. It's not a perfect 1-to-1, but otherwise, yeah, I'm with you. Any thoughts on that you want to respond before we go ahead and move on to some rotation stuff?
Just my only question is you can't keep all these young guys around. Like
Yeah.
you have to pay them all at some point, and you have to have a discussion on like who is it gonna be. Like if Ron's gonna be around for the long haul, like is that at the expense of Ivy? It doesn't have to be, but just for example, because you have Cade, Holland, Ivy, Duran, like Stu's under extension as well. Like you have all these guys, and you just have to figure out who is like a keeper and who makes sense on this roster for the long term. That might be what this season is about more than anything.
Okay, so last one here, and then we will get on out. This is from Gregory 1988, and Gregory, we apologize. We're going to twist this question like no other to make it be totally different than what you asked, but we're going to talk about some rotation. So he says, how many minutes would you like each player to get at which position to start the season, assuming the roster stays as it is right now? And because I'm in Europe, we did not have time to sit in front of a spreadsheet and actually do this properly. So instead, let's just talk about the general rotation. Right now, what do you think would be the starting lineup? How deep would the rotation go, and who do you think is going to be in it?
So I have 4 starters, Cade, and then I've one of Beasley or Tim Hardaway. I lean towards Beasley, and that's just adding shooting. I included Fontecchio just because I'm trying to add shooting around Cade, and then I also have Tobias and Jalen Duran. So that obviously leaves Asar Thompson out of the starting lineup. It leaves Jaden Ivey out of the starting lineup. My issue was when I was going through it is like if you're starting Jalen Duran at the 5, we talked about last week, we probably don't want to play him next to Asar Thompson and just have 2 non-shooters at the 4. But in that case, the full rotation I have is Cade, Beasley, Hardaway, Jaden Ivey, Fontecchio, Asar Thompson, Tobias, Jalen Duran, Isaiah Stewart, and then I threw Ron Holland there at 10. That leaves Paul Reed out. Like when we signed Paul Reed, I was like, you have to play him somewhere. He's a really good defensive big man and brings some of the things you're missing, but where are the minutes? That leaves Marcus Sasser out, Bobby Klintman out, Wendell Moore out. Like Moore, I don't really think we see a way he gets into the rotation. So it's really tight for me. And then you still have that standard roster spot open where you don't know if they're going to bring in a backup point guard that you need to put into the rotation. And really I'm putting Holland in just because of everything we said. You drafted this guy with a top 5 pick. You want to see what he can do, give him room to make mistakes and grow as a player, but he's like at the end of the rotation for me, which maybe the team sees it totally different, but with all the signings and acquisitions, like the rotation is a lot tighter than I thought. And maybe JB wants to go 9-man instead of 10.
The only change that I would make to what you outlined, I would start Ivy, and that's both what I would do and kind of what I expect to happen, being, that we're super early. We haven't seen any of camp or any of the preseason. But right now, if I had to guess, I would say starting five is Cade, Ivy, Fontecchio, Harris, and Duran. I'm right there with you. Like we keep talking about, you cannot play a star next to Duran. Ideally, at all, it'll probably happen some. So you just need to minimize that as much as possible. So if Duran's going to end up starting, I think you're going to see Tech. And I would rather have Fontecchio out there than Isaiah Stewart or Paul Reed, which is kind of the alternative, right? If you want to start Thompson, then you're looking at one of those two starting at the five. I just think I like that less than getting big minutes to Fontecchio. But with that, I do think you're going to see a lot of staggering. That's something that Bickerstaff did both in Memphis and with Cleveland. So, off the bench, the guys coming off the bench, that is, are Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., Ron Holland, Asar Thompson, and Isaiah Stewart. I'm with you. They're a really young team. I do think they still go 10-man. That 10th man probably shifts, though, night to night. We've obviously talked about the injury stuff. So Duran and Stewart, if one of them go down, that's where Paul Reed probably comes in. But, I could see nights where you prioritize getting a Bobby Clipman in so that Tim Hardaway Jr. gets some veteran rest. Same thing with Malik Beasley, that kind of thing. I kind of expect that to happen as well. So I'm expecting a lot of stagger on the guard spot and at the forward spots there too, because while I'm really intrigued to see what Asar Thompson and Ron Holland can do out there together, I don't think that's a good thing to invest a ton of minutes in. I'm just curious to see how it goes. So yeah, that'd be my guess. My only switch up from what you said was I do think Ivy's still going to get the nod there to start.
That's fair, and that's one I struggled with as well. And we're obviously coming at this like really the only thing we can do is an opening night lens, like first 10 games. But both Beasley and Hardaway you signed Beasley to a 1-year deal. Hardaway's on an expiring. So those are potential trade pieces at the deadline as well. So you don't know what the roster is going to look like. And if you move on from one of them, that is a clear full path to more minutes for Jaden Ivey. And yeah, that spot, really, I just lean toward one of the vets just to add as much shooting as possible. But I mean, we did spend all that time talking about having this year, knowing who you're going to commit to long term. And if my starting lineup is what we see on opening night, you'll still see Ivy play next to Cade, but at the same time, you won't see as much of it. So it doesn't give you as much of an answer as how that potential pairing can work out long term. But I think Ivy is someone that you could easily place in the starting lineup and more easily piece together the rest of the players around him compared to Asar and Duran, who you almost have to just piece together everything else around them and put together really specific guys. So, and yeah, you're right. We don't think they should play Asar and Duran next to each other to help Cade out, but we might see it at certain times.
I think the development thing that you brought up is really the most compelling argument to still starting Jaden Ivey, at least through the first half of the season. And that's just, if he is truly coming off the bench, he is not your de facto backup point guard. He is your backup point guard. At least if you start him, you can guarantee that you're going to get some minutes at the start and likely at the end of games where both Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey are on the floor together. And you can really make that sort of assessment of, is this something that we want to continue investing in long term? If you already don't think that that's going to be a thing, you don't think Ivey's going to be that type of guy, then okay, great. Just make him the backup point guard. Make all of the 2 minutes go to Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. and really don't shift them up all that much. But it's much more difficult if you go down that path to get Jaden Ivey minutes next to Cade, and that would really concern me entering into a year 3 for Ivey and really Duren as well, where like we said all episode, this is the evaluation year. You are making your assessment as to whether those two guys are long-term starting pieces, bench pieces, role players, what have you. So making sure that Ivey gets out there for some portion of minutes with Cade, far easier to do if he's in the starting and closing lineups. Same thing with Duren. So that's, at this point, kind of my expectation to open up the year. And that could obviously change, right? Like we said, we haven't seen training camp or preseason, anything like that. But right now, that would be my expectation.
My only question is, say opening night, it's a close game. Would you keep like a Beasley or Hardaway on the floor as opposed to Ivey just for shooting purposes?
Depends. I can't remember when we had talked about this, but truly for me, what happened the game before? If you feel like you need a win, then yeah, like get all the vets out there with Cade, roll out like Cade, Malik Beasley, Fontecchio, Tobias Harris, and Isaiah Stewart to close out the game and really go all in to try and get a win and keep the team morale up high. But if Ivey, and truth tell brings it up too, it depends on how they're playing. If Ivey's having an off night, then absolutely that is what I would do. So the flexibility of the veterans on the roster kind of give you an out so that Ivey doesn't have to be in the closing lineup every night, but they're not going to be good. They're still not going to be a good team. We as much as I think this roster has improved, I do still think it would be incredible, unbelievable of a leap forwards if they get over 30 wins. It's possible. It's just really, really hard to predict that right now based on how bad they were last year. So with that, the games still don't matter as much in the win-loss as it matters the lessons that these young guys are going to take out of it. So if you're going to lose more games than you win, and getting Ivey those closing minutes on a more competitive team than he's been on in his first 2 years in the league, I think by and large, same situation for Duren as well. I think that's really valuable because, again, like with how much the roster's improved, hopefully they actually have more close games this year.
Yeah, and can pull those out when they are
right. Just pull out a third of the close games, and the ones that you win probably are the games that you went with the veteran lineup to really make sure you got a win. The rest are going to be learning experiences, but hey, well, what if they get hot and the young guys pull one out? I mean, it's really important, and if you have more opportunities to do that, it just builds that confidence. So. That'd be how I approach it. It's kind of a night-by-night thing.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you there.
All right, Blake, I think we got to wrap it up here. I got to get up early so that I can hop on a 10-hour flight tomorrow. So I think we should close it. But to everyone that tuned in, thank you guys. We really appreciate it again. Sorry if I'm having any mic issues. It is what it is with the hotel Wi-Fi. So thank you for bearing with it. Blake, appreciate you as always, like I said at the beginning, doing all the stuff, literally everything needed to keep this podcast rolling while I'm away. You over-exaggerate. Usually we split it just about 50-50, the work that it takes to do. So I really appreciate you taking up my end of it so that we can still have this great show. Thank you to you.
Oh man, no, Wes, thank you for still joining at ungodly hours while you're off on vacation. We appreciate you, and thank you all for joining. We really appreciate it. Just a reminder to like the YouTube video when you can to help us get this thing out there. Subscribe to the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel. I think we're like just under 800 subscribers, so you guys have been immensely beneficial in getting us to there. And yeah, just trying to get this thing out to as many Pistons fans as possible. So we appreciate your support. Reminder, you all can call our phone number hotline to ask a question, hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to our guy, Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for always supporting the show. Shout out to you guys again for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.